on First at 9, this Friday, the 18th of October 2024. Upholding rule of law. US Ambassador highlights the need of effective law enforcement in Sri Lanka to tackle crimes.
We must ensure that our laws and internal policies are up to date and effective to deal with the threats we are now challenged with.
Tragedy hits. 2 elephants die in tragic train collision. Train services between Batticaloa-Colombo main line suspended.
ඔබේ විශ්වාසය දෙනු සෙන්සුරයින් දැන් ළඟමැති ෆාමසියෙන් ලබා ගත හැක.
වැඩිම මනාපෙන් ජනතා තේරීම මෙවරත්.
සුදේශී ඔරිජිනල් කුහුඹම තමයි.
Crunchy goodness for hunger on the go.
Other Derana First at 9 with Indivari Amuata. Live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
And a very warm welcome. You're joining us here at Other Derana First at 9 for the very latest in your English news service. Sri Lanka's Environment Secretary is of the view that Sri Lanka must invest in green financing to address issues pertaining to climate change. Addressing global leaders and experts at the Global Green Growth Summit in Seoul, Environment Secretary Prabhat Chandrakirti added that private sector investment and international support is essential to achieve renewable energy targets. According to the Ministry of Power and Energy, the Sri Lankan government has set a target of securing 70% of the country's energy requirement via renewable energy by 2030. This commitment aligns with global efforts to combat climate change and reduce carbon emissions.
Global Green Growth Week, a global flagship event of Global Green Growth Institute to provide a platform for its members and partners to share their successes and challenges regarding the green growth agenda, was held recently in the South Korean capital Seoul. Representing Sri Lanka, Secretary to the Ministry of Environment Prabhat Chandrakirti participated in the ministerial panel of the event.
Just after the COVID-19 pandemic, Sri Lanka also faced economic crisis, but the support from the international organization and also the debt restructuring process we are now establishing in our economy. We are focusing not as a challenge, as an opportunity to Sri Lanka to transformation to the green growth. The new government, their manifesto also mentioned about the green agriculture and green initiatives are mentioned in their manifestos. We need the political will to move forward with that to combat climate change crisis. By 2030, we have to achieve 70% of the renewable energy target. That is not only reducing our emissions, but that is also opportunity to the improvement and development of the job opportunities as well, and also the development of economy. In Sri Lanka, we can use the natural resources to our renewable energy, but only the government can't invest to achieve that target. We need the private sector support and international cooperation. We need to invest in private sector in the climate finance and green bonds to address these climate change impacts and climate change issues, and also the sovereign green bond framework in Sri Lanka to private bank engage with the green bond issuance. Those banks are ready to issue the green bonds with support from the GGIs and other development partner support. We have launched climate prosperity plan in COP27. We have target to achieve net zero by 2050. We have roadmap and a strategic plan for to achieve the net zero target. Also, the Cabinet of Ministers approved green public procurement for the government sector. We are now looking to initiative and implementing this green public procurement.
Horizon Campus 2024 Intake 2. Register now. පිරිපුන් ජීවිතයකට ඔබ සමගින් පෙරට Union Assurance.
Welcome to Cinnamon Life, South Asia's biggest entertainment hub, where awe awaits.
කාගෙත් ප්‍රියතම මෙලිබන් බිස්කට් දැන් 30ක් සීනි අඩුවෙන් රස දන්න කාටත්
හරි ෂෝක්.
Sadaharita Plantations Limited, celebrating 22 years of your trust.
US Ambassador to Sri Lanka Julie Chung highlighted that necessary laws for effective law enforcement in Sri Lanka is needed to tackle crimes and corruption in the island. Addressing a graduation ceremony of Sri Lanka police, the US ambassador noted that it is a must to ensure that the country's laws and internal policies are up to date and effective to deal with the threats and challenges emerging in the future.
The graduation ceremony for Sri Lanka Police Scene of Crime officers who completed intermediate and advanced training with funding from the Bureau of International Narcotics and Law Enforcement Affairs of the US Department of State was held in Colombo yesterday under the patronage of US Ambassador Julie Chung.
The efficient resolution of crimes and swift delivery of justice remain the highest expectation placed upon any law enforcement agency. With these newly acquired skills, I'm confident our officers will meet this expectation more effectively, contributing to a safer community and a more secure nation. We understand that contemporary challenges such as transitional crime, terrorism, and extremism cannot be tackled by a single nation in isolation. It is only through the partnership with nations like the United States that through programs like this step, we can effectively address these global threats.
Strengthening Sri Lanka's criminal justice system is a critical component. The rule of law, equal access to justice, accountability, victims' rights. These are all pillars of democratic legal systems and are essential to the safety and well-being of all Sri Lanka citizens and the citizens who may fall under the jurisdiction of Sri Lanka's laws. Now, effective law enforcement and the skills required to conduct thorough and successful criminal investigations are essential to stop the proliferation of criminal activities in today's society. Together, we must increase the capabilities of our criminal justice agencies, collaborate with their governments to address all manners of threats facing our societies, from the proliferation of narcotics, child exploitation, trafficking of persons, and which includes providing necessary resources, equipment, and training to improve our public education and outreach, interdiction efforts, investigation capacities, and our prosecutions. We must ensure that our laws and internal policies are up to date and effective to deal with the threats we are now challenged with. So we must continue to be proactive. This training was wonderful, but it doesn't stop here. You have to continue. In each of these areas, we can serve and how to serve our citizens effectively. The fight against crime in Sri Lanka requires a united front. Our citizens, private industries, the media, everybody working together. This fight cannot be won overnight, but the determination, cooperation, and sustained effort, we can make a difference. Together, we can build a future where your children and your grandchildren are free from the effects of transnational crime and nations can prosper.
2 wild elephants were tragically killed in a train collision on the Colombo-Batticaloa main line early this morning. A herd of wild elephants were hit by a Batticaloa-bound fuel train near the Minneria junction. Later, the Railways Department suspended all trains functioning on the Colombo-Batticaloa main line until further notice. Meanwhile, authorities have begun investigations into the incident to ascertain whether the train had complied with the speed limit of 20 kilometers in the area.
The tragic accident happened when a fuel train collided a herd of wild elephants crossing the tracks near the Minneria Rotavawa junction on the Colombo-Batticaloa main line around 3 a.m. today. Two wild elephants died in the tragic collision, while another sustained severe injuries. The fuel train in question had been transporting fuel from the Colonava Petroleum Storage Terminal to Batticaloa. The train derailed after colliding with the herd of wild elephants who were attempting to cross the tracks while on their way to the Kaudula National Park. The Department of Railways confirmed that a total of 4 tank cars derailed, out of which 2 toppled. The engine as well as another compartment of the train also derailed following the collision. The fuel train had been transporting 3 cars of petrol and 5 cars containing diesel, while around 100,000 litres of petrol is reported to have been destroyed owing to the accident this morning. Meanwhile, police reported that area residents disregarded warnings to collect fuel from the tank leakages. Wildlife officials meanwhile suspect the train in question had been moving at high speed in a zone where a speed limit of 20 km per hour is imposed.
මැසිවිලි නගන කන 80කට ගියා කියන එක මේ කෝච්චියට යොදවලා තියෙන එන්ජිමත් අවුරුදු 50කට 60කට.
There are complaints that the train was travelling at 80 kilometers per hour. The train engine is 50 to 60 years old. It had the capacity to function with 9 tanks, but now it can only transport up to 7 tanks. These trains need to maintain a certain speed when travelling through mountain areas. Such an engine cannot function at a low speed in mountain areas. We have appointed a committee to look into this incident.
මේගොල්ලෝ ගමන් කරලා තියෙන වේග සීමාව කොතනද කියනද අපිට පරීක්ෂණයේ අවසානයේ දැනගන්න පුළුවන්.
Meanwhile, residents of the area noted that electric fences set up across the path used by elephants are a main reason for such accidents.
පුරාණ ඉඳලා මෙතනින් අලි සංක්‍රමණය වෙන තරම්. නමුත් මෙතන අලි වැටක් දාලා තියෙන නිසා මෙතන ඉස්සර ඉඳලා අලි මංකඩ මේක. නමුත් මේ අලි වැට නිසා තමයි මේ අලින්ට මෙච්චර හානි සිදු වෙන්නේ මේ ස්ථානේ. මම නම් එදා ඉඳන් කියන එකක් තමයි එතනින් අරින්න මේ අලින්ට යන්න කියන එක.
All trains functioning on the Colombo-Batticaloa main line have been suspended until further notice. Wildlife officials were seen taking measures to treat the severely injured wild elephant. Field bowsers of the Ceylon Petroleum Corporation reached the scene by noon to collect the remaining fuel from the 2 toppled tanks. We spoke to environmentalist Dr. Jagat Gunawardana to better understand what urgent measures the authorities need to put in place to address such situations.
The collision of elephants with trains is a recurrent tragedy for 2 decades, and we are still encountering elephant deaths at times. We need to have a comprehensive solution to mitigate these incidents. I think together with some new electronic devices and new techniques so that we can have an early warning system and another system if there is a sudden presence of an elephant near the rail track, for the train to stop momentarily or to slow it down to a certain extent that they can prevent collision in a satisfactory way. I think this problem cannot be solved by the Wildlife Department alone. The Department of Railways and the Ministry of Transport has to be involved in one aspect, and on the other hand, the Ministry of Environment, under which the Wildlife Department comes, has to call a dialogue between all the different parties and have a comprehensive plan of action made and put into place as soon as possible.
Sri Lanka Decides 2024.
Fast track your career from O levels with eSoft.
කාගෙත් ප්‍රියතම මෙලිබන් බිස්කට් දැන් 30ක් සීනි අඩුවෙන්. රස දන්න කාටත්
හරිෂෝ.
දරුවන් ගැන ඒ තරම්ම හිතන නිසයි ලංකාවේ අම්මලා විශ්වාසයෙන් මෙලිබන් කිරිම දෙන්නේ.
After O-Levels, start your Australian university degree in just 8 months with ACBT's Foundation Program. Enrollments close on 21st October. Call 071 115 1234 for Colombo or 077 011 3223 for Kandy.
And in our election segment ahead of the upcoming poll, leader of the Samagi Jana Sandhanaya, Sajid Premadasa, says his alliance will work with the International Monetary Fund to implement tax reductions if granted a majority in Parliament. Meanwhile, Colombo district candidate of the alliance, Iran Vikramaratne, claims that the result of the presidential poll will not necessarily determine the outcome of the parliamentary election.
Samagi Jana Balawega's Avisaveli electorate meeting was held yesterday under the patronage of the party leader Sajid Premadasa.
Some believe that the party defeated in the presidential election will face the same fate in the parliamentary election. However, I say that our past results will not necessarily determine our fate in parliament. We are contesting as a Samagi Jana Balawege and we seek your votes to form a government. During the election period, they promised the public that they would hold discussions with the International Monetary Fund and reduce the burden of direct and indirect taxes. But what is the result now? Although they claim that they would reduce the taxes, the International Monetary Fund has not provided a clear answer on the matter. Grant us a majority in Parliament and we will work with the International Monetary Fund to implement the tax reduction process. Some may question whether we can work together while the President and the government are on different sides. We have no issue working together.
Leader of the Sarva Jana Balaya, Dilit Jayavira, states that his alliance's honest attempt is to give an opportunity to the newly appointed government. However, he also claims that his alliance will not support any proposals that can affect the unity or unitary state of the country or territorial integrity. Meanwhile, Colombo district candidate of Sarvajana Balaya Udaya Gammampila stated that he will only release Easter Attack Commission reports but not disclose any annexures with information sensitive to national security.
We mentioned that a brave opposition is needed. Only a brave opposition is capable of guiding the government to the correct path. A weak opposition will reprove anything the government does. We clearly stated that we need to give an opportunity to the newly elected government, and that is our honest attempt. However, they have a proposal in their program that affects the country's unified status, territorial integrity and nationality. We are taking this risk because the public has the complete right to know information. On 12th of February 2021, the incumbent president posted on his social media that the commission report of the Easter Sunday attacks should be released as a public document, stating that the then president and the government had no right to conceal it. If he could make this statement in 2021, how can it now be an offense to reveal it now? The president still has time until Monday to release the reports. However, it seems that they have decided that publishing these reports might create chaos for them. In fact, the annexures in the committee reports are considered state secrets. I called Minister Vijitha Hera to request a date and time to hand over the annexures, but he did not answer my call. I then texted him and he is yet to respond. Since it appears that he is trying to avoid this intentionally, I informed him via registered post that I have the annexures and to give me an appointment date to hand over the same. We will only publish the commission reports and we will not disclose any annexures sensitive to national security.
ප්‍රසිද්ධ කරන්නේ කොමිෂන් වාර්තා පමණයි ජාතික ආරක්ෂාවට සංවේදී කිසිම ඇමුණුමක් අපි ප්‍රසිද්ධ කරන්නේ නැහැ.
And here's a look at more views expressed at the political stage.
මාස 6න් 6ට වැටුප් වැඩි වෙනවා නම් ඉතින් ජනවාරි මාසේ වැටුප් වැඩි වෙන්න ඕනේ. ඉතින් අපි බලන් ඉමු මාස 6න් 6ට වැටුප් වැඩි වෙනවද ජනවාරි මාසේ වැටුප් වැඩි වෙනවද කියලා. හැබැයි මම කියන්නම් අද ජනවාරි මාසේ වැටුප් වැඩි වෙන්නේ නැහැ. පාර්ලිමේන්තුවටයි මුදල් බලය තියෙන්නේ. ජනාධිපතිවරයාට මුදල් බලය නැහැ. එහෙමනම් පාර්ලිමේන්තුවට තමයි ඒ වගකීම තියෙන්නේ. ඒගොල්ලෝ දැන් අපේ එල්ලීලානේ යන්න හදන්නේ. ඒගොල්ලෝ දැන් අපිට සපෝට් කරන්න තමයි පාර්ලිමේන්තුව එන්න හදන්නේ. ඉතින් එන්න කමන්නේ පුළුවන් නම් ජනතාව තෝරනවා එන්න ඕන කෙනෙකුට සහයෝගය දෙන්න පුළුවන් කොන්දේසි විරහිතව ජනතාවගේ පැත්ත බලලා. මං හිතන්නේ උනාට ඒගොල්ලන්ට ජනතාව ඡන්දෙ දෙයි කියලා.
මේ තියෙන මැතිවරණ ප්‍රතිඵල යන 105යි NPP එකට තියෙන්නේ. ඒ නිසා බහුතර මන්ත්‍රී ආසන සංඛ්‍යාවක් දිනා ගැනීමේ ලොකු ප්‍රශ්නයක හැමදෙනාම ඉන්නවා. ඒ නිසා NPP එක නියත වශයෙන්ම ආණ්ඩුව පිටවනවා කියලා හිතන ඒ නියඳියේ ඉඳගෙන කතා කිරීම වැරදි. පාර්ලිමේන්තුවේ ගාන කීයද කියන එක නෙවෙයි වැඩි පාර්ලිමේන්තු සංඛ්‍යාවක් ඒගොල්ලන්ට ලබා දෙයි මිනිස්සු. ඒතර විපක්ෂයේ කාර්යභාරයක් අපි කරන්න තියෙනවා. හොඳට කරනවා නම් හොඳයි. හැබැයි රටට අහිතකර දේවල් සිද්ධ වෙනකොට විපක්ෂයේ වගකීම ඉටු කරනවා. ඇයි අපි විපක්ෂය ගැනම කතා කරන්නේ? මම කැමති වෙන්නේ විපක්ෂයේ ඉන්න නෙවෙයි අපි තරඟ කරන්නේ ආණ්ඩු පක්ෂය නියෝජනය කරන්න. ඉතින් ඒක නිසා ගෑස් සිලින්ඩරය යටතේ ආණ්ඩු පක්ෂය නියෝජනය කරන්න තමයි අවශ්‍ය කරන ඒ තරඟකාරීත්වය ලබා දෙන්න සූදානම් වෙලා තියෙන්නේ.
එක පරාජයකින් ඒක අතාරින්න බෑ. ඒ සිලින්ඩරයට වෙච්ච ඡන්ද ප්‍රමාණය අපි රැකගත්තොත් මේ මැතිවරණේ අපිට මන්ත්‍රීවරු 4-5කට යන්න පුළුවන්කම තියෙනවා. ඔද සාමාන්‍යයෙන් ජනාධිපතිවරණයකින් පස්සේ ඊළඟ මැතිවරණේ දිනුපුවාගේ ඡන්ද ප්‍රමාණයක් අඩු වෙනවා.
පක්ෂයේ යම්කිසි පසුබෑමකට ලකුණ මට විශ්වාසයක් තියෙනවා යම්කිසි දවසක ජනතාව නැවත වතාවක් ඒ දේශීයත්වයේ කේන්ද්‍ර කරගත් ආර්ථික සමාජ දේශපාලන ප්‍රතිපත්ති වලට නැඹුරු වෙනවා.
Sri Lanka decides 2024.
Welcome back. We take you to business affairs. Sri Lanka has only utilised 53% of the welfare budget in the first 8 months of 2024. According to the pre-election budgetary report of the Ministry of Finance, 562.4 billion rupees of the 1,055.7 billion welfare budget has been spent during this period. The previous government increased the welfare budget by 15.3% for the year compared to the actual expenditure of 915.4 billion rupees in 2023 following IMF recommendations. Of the total 562.4 billion spent in the first 8 months, 112.7 billion went to the Asvasuma Poverty Alleviation Program, 9.5 billion for school nutrition, 4.4 billion for school textbooks and uniforms, and 24.2 billion for fertilizer subsidies. Now, the broad market experienced another volatile trading day as investors maintained mixed sentiment throughout the session. However, the index managed to close the week higher at 12,313, up 23 points. Investors continued the positive sentiment on selected plantation sector stocks. With improved participation from retail investors, turnover experienced a slight increase from yesterday's session to 2 billion rupees. However, this marks a 10.3% decrease from the monthly average of 2.2 billion. Let's now take a look at your currency rates. And that wraps up tonight's edition of First at 9. We'll see you again tomorrow with the very latest from across Sri Lanka and around the world. I'm Indiveri Amwat. Have a pleasant evening. Good night.